Welcome to the second installment of Video Game Movie Theme Month, otherwise known as Vgumpdum. This week we're looking at a film from Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, the same guys that brought us Crank 2, and that's 2009's Gamer, starring Gerard Butler, Amber Valletta, and Michael C. Hall. Straight up, this film's main flaw is that it's too normal. It's perfectly watchable if you're looking for guns, tits, explosions, and a creepy fat man, but it's pretty formula. That's not the end of the world, but it was a bit disappointing watching this after watching the Crank movies where Neveldine and Taylor demonstrate a reckless disregard for convention. The funny thing is that the Crank movies are actually better video game movies than Gamer, which, despite the name, has very little to do with video games at all. As a middle ground film, it doesn't have a long laundry list of deep flaws, but there's one that I want to call attention to because it's a very subtle problem that's ultimately the biggest weakness. Gamer isn't worth watching more than once, and even then it's kinda boring. The reason for this is that it isn't a very efficient script. This is a subtle problem because there really isn't any one thing that you can point to and say, that right there, that thing is useless. Every scene in the film serves a proper function and either establishes setting, builds character, or moves the plot. So in a pure theory sense, the script is fine. The flaw is that most scenes only do one of those things. We only learn one important piece of information, learn one new thing about a character or the world, or see one event that moves the plot forward. For a movie that's edited like a music video, it's a surprisingly slow-moving story. The plot is set up as a mystery with a reasonably well-constructed conspiracy, but information just comes out too slow. Rather than snowballing towards a big reveal, the script drip-feeds the audience, continuing to provide new details until the very end. In fact, we don't even learn the villain's end goal until the penultimate scene. It makes it really easy to follow the conspiracy, but it undermines the pacing and, honestly, kills a lot of the drama because important revelations just aren't given enough time to sink in. Let's run down the plot so we're all on the same page. In short, John Tillman is a fighter in a video game called Slayers that uses death row convicts as the avatars for players. If a convict survives 30 rounds, they win their freedom, and at the start of the film, Tillman, aka Cable, is on his 27th match. As the plot unfolds, we learn that Castle, the inventor of Slayers, is up to no good and plans to use the nanobrain technology to take over the world. Tillman knows this because he was one of the first test subjects, and Castle used the tech to make him murder the other test subject, which is why he was thrown in jail. But these are all kind of suppressed memories that don't come out in detail until Ludacris gives him a brain scan at the end of the second act. Tillman manages to break out of the game, he rescues his wife and daughter, confronts Castle, they fight, Tillman wins, people cheer, they shut down the mind control network, Tillman and family drive off into the unknown, credits roll. There's also subplots involving a reporter trying to get the scoop of her career, a teenage player controlling Tillman in the game, and a band of terrorists/freedom fighters called the Humans with a Z, led by Ludacris. Most of them die. Okay, why would I say that it has little to do with video games? Well, because the video games in this context are used only as a loose framing device for a mystery story that's about control.
You can get paid to be controlled, or you can pay to control.
Only the outward trappings and facades of video games are used, the lingo and the user interfaces. But the actual mechanics and broader social implications of video games are missing. In the end, the games depicted in Gamer are less video game and more reality TV and sport. First, let's look at Society, the other game Castle invented where players control real people, to see how this use of video games is little more than a skin-deep reference. It's presented as a social game reminiscent of Second Life.
First, there was Society, the ultimate sim environment, where players don't control virtual animated characters, but actual, living, breathing human beings. They walked them, they talked them, they juiced them, they rocked them.
The problem with Society is that it's actually a really crappy game with tons of drawbacks and almost no unique advantages. First of all, players aren't controlling these games with Matrix-style brain plugs. They're not physically experiencing the events. They're playing the game on monitors with voice commands and motion controls, meaning there's still that depersonalized layer in the way of the experience. You're not actually living life as a super hot woman for a time, you're just controlling an avatar that looks like a super hot woman and pretending to be them. The lack of direct stimulus is actually really important because even with the other drawbacks and limitations, there would still be an obvious appeal in that you could experience drugs, crazy sex, or other exotic experiences with little to no personal inconvenience or repercussions. You'd be able to get blindingly drunk, then sober up the moment you disconnected, or experience the rush of jumping off something really high without being the one to live with a broken leg. But that's not how it works in society. If you make your avatar get drunk, then all you've really done is watch someone get drunk. So let's talk about the big downside. There are tons of limitations in society. Your avatar is a real human being, meaning if they get injured, sick, or go home, they're unplayable. You're also limited to playing a human. You can only make use of the costumes that the actor has available, and you're limited to looking like one of the actors. Also, you're still limited to the rules of reality. You can't run forever, jump super high, breathe underwater, fly a spaceship, or use magic. Plus, you still have to deal with scarcity. If there's no room in the bar, you can't go in. If all the cars are taken, you can't drive around. If all the arcade games are being played, you have to wait in line. In contrast, Second Life allows you to play as a bipedal unicorn, a vampire, a giant rabbit, a robot, or even an airship? The world uses simplified rules that take out most of the bothersome limitations of reality. Your character doesn't become unplayable for a year if you jump off a balcony and break their legs. They don't die if you fail to feed them, and they can teleport from one side of the world to the other. Hell, at the push of a button, they can fly. There's still some obvious appeal in society: vicarious gratification, anonymous and idealized social interaction, reduced consequences for abnormal or antisocial behavior, so on and so forth. But none of these are unique to society. In fact, the only thing that's unique to society is the knowledge that you're watching real people. The implication here is that the main appeal of society isn't role-playing and escapism, it's misery tourism and custom pornography. Tons of people would still sign up for that, but it's not a very good game. Slayers fares a little better in comparison, but still falls victim to a lot of the same problems. The game wouldn't actually be all that much fun because it's incredibly inconvenient. You can only play during scheduled events, and if your Slayer dies, you're out of the match until the next match. The movie isn't explicit about the time between matches, but it seems to be at least a day or two, and during the time between matches, you have no apparent opportunity to practice, so it's going to take forever to get to be any good at the game. There's a really odd moment in the first scene with Simon, the gamer in control of Tillman, where a couple of twins call him up and offer him money in exchange for a turn playing as Cable.
50 million euros for control of Cable. Instant transfer to the account of your choice.
Cable's not for sale. Thank you.
Baby, make it 100.
Been real.
This makes almost no sense. Cable is a celebrity, okay, but I don't get why they would want to play as Cable when the stakes are so high. Because the game would be so hard to get good at, they'd just get Cable killed. They wouldn't be semi-famous groupies, they'd be the bimbos that got an international celebrity killed because they suck at the game. And he is an international celebrity. The opening credits go to great lengths to show just how popular Slayers is, and when Cable wins his 28th match, huge crowds of people celebrate from Los Angeles to Beijing. Considering the stakes involved in being successful at a game that's this popular, in reality it would be dominated by elite teams of players and not, apparently, masses of unorganized scrubs blindly charging at each other. Since we're already going in that direction, it's worth pointing out that the actual structure of Slayers is kinda jacked up. It's a team game, sort of. It's hard to tell because it's impossible to tell players apart from each other. They aren't color-coded into teams or anything, even on Simon's user interface, but people occasionally work together, so it's not a complete free-for-all. Alright, I know that this is starting to sound particularly nitpicky, but I think there's some good ideas in here that could be salvaged for a better movie. Basically, if you want to include video games as a central element of your movie's world, then those games need to behave right. They need to feel right and they need to work. If they're not believable, then they break the audience's immersion and diffuse tension. This is another part of why I said that Gamer isn't worth watching more than once. I know I go out of my way to overthink this stuff, but I can't be the only person who watched this and kept asking, wait, does this game have rules? With each successive viewing, I realized that they were basically playing Calvin Ball with rules made up on the fly. On a story level, since it's just mindless blood sport with made-up rules, the whole gamer-avatar relationship ends up feeling a bit superfluous, and the themes of control aren't developed enough to make the decision poignant or insightful.
We live in society. We visit society. I mean, which one's more real, really? I mean, which one's really real? You know what I mean?
Personally, I kinda wish they'd dropped the video game theme and just done a remake of The Running Man.
The Running Man.
Final verdict, it's not a complete waste of time. Neveldine and Taylor are great visual storytellers, the actors put in entertaining performances, but all in all, it's pretty forgettable. Next week, something, well, it's definitely memorable. Postal.
Sorry, we're closed.